This meeting is really a get-to-know-you meeting. We're going to sit down. Typically, the meeting will last about an hour. We're having a conversation. My job is to ask them some questions about where they are, what some of their goals are, what some of the key objectives they have in meeting with me, where they are to this point, and really what brought them in to see me. And now I'm at the point in my career where I have a lot of people that are dependent upon me to provide them with all the guidance and all the advice that we do on a day-to-day basis.
You spend your working years trying to build up your assets, trying to build up pension credits at your job, trying to grow your nest egg so that you can one day retire when you can't work or don't want to work anymore. And that's a period followed by phase two, which is retirement. And your priorities in these two phases are very different, but many times we see people don't make that shift and they still act like they're in phase one when they really should be acting like they're in phase two.
We're going to talk to you about what we commonly refer to as the second half of the game. And what I mean by that is you're working your entire life towards retirement, and I'm assuming that most of you are, at that age where you're starting to consider some of your options as you move into retirement. And as you do that, you're moving from what we call the accumulation phase of your life, where you're accumulating your assets. Maybe you're participating in your company's 401k, maybe you're contributing to an IRA account or a Roth IRA account or some type of retirement vehicle. And now, as you retire, you're transitioning into the distribution phase, or the part where you're going to need income in retirement. So we're going to talk about some different ways to do that with an emphasis on Social Security.
Hi, welcome to Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush. My name is Barry Warnker, and I'm going to be the host of today's show. Jeff, let's talk today about our investment system. We call it the Asset Cycle Portfolio, and we've been using this system, at least 10 years, maybe more, and it's proven to be very successful for our clients. They love the way it works and how it manages their assets. Can you talk a little bit about what it is?
Well, hello, Barry, and welcome to the show. Good to be here on PCTV. This is our 20th show, so time marches on. We've been doing this now well into our second year, so it's so good to be here with our neighbors here in Pottstown, and because we put this out on our website and also the PCTV network website. We're on the World Wide Web, so really good to be here. Today we're going to talk about the Asset Cycle Portfolio System. And I like to say the Asset Cycle Portfolio System is so simple, it's profound. This planning system we've been using, as you said, for about the last 10 years. And it's basically what we do is we present an entire financial plan on one page. So, and we feel that that's what separates us from a lot of advisors who maybe will put together an elaborate plan that's 30 pages long and is really hard for the consumer to understand. And of course, we have all that backup detail when we put these plans together, but what the Asset Cycle Portfolio System is really designed to do is really put your plan, put your future all on one page. So we got some slides we're going to show you here today that's going to make this easy to understand. For most retirees, the fear of running out of money and outliving their assets is a very real concern. So we want to get that first slide up there. Okay, so how secure is your retirement paycheck? For many retirees, the fear of running out of money and outliving their assets is a very real concern. In its most simple form, what Asset Cycle Portfolio does, Barry, is it transforms your assets into an easy to understand format. And it produces a stream of income throughout your whole entire lifetime.
I heard an interesting comment the other day, and that was, if your retirement income plan is dependent upon you dying sooner than you might want to, it's not a very good plan. In other words, we've got a great plan. We're not going to run out of money. Of course, I've got to die, but before I'm 82 or whatever, and So what we want to do is we want to enable people to get kind of a picture of their future in a concise one-page form. It's the big picture, and it shows how the different parts of the investment world, in their investment world, how those different parts work, and each is assigned its own job to do. And the system is, like, as you mentioned, it's simple, but it's also profound, because when people look at it and they finally see the numbers and see the time frame, they say, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's go through the thought process behind the asset cycle portfolio system. So we got another slide for this one. And basically what we're doing with asset cycle is we're assigning job descriptions to your assets. There are many financial tools available, and what we do with asset cycle is coordinate a collection of tools, and we utilize them for their intended use. So in essence, it gives a specific job description or a task to each set of assets. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was going to mention that while we're talking about the job description for assets, oftentimes we'll sit down with the family and look at the investments that they have, and I guess it's human nature that we tend to like the things that we like and want more of the things we like, and we oftentimes will see that people have all or predominantly all of one kind of investment, because that's the kind of investment they like. Give you an example. Real estate. They might just be crazy about real estate, and real estate certainly has its merits, and people have done very well in real estate. But is real estate really a financial plan when it's the only ingredient in the? So what we do is try to look at different jobs that have to be done and say, okay, well, who's the best candidate for this job?
Okay. Good. All right, so this next slide that I want to show you is the protection umbrella on the top there. So here's really what I feel is the nuts and bolts of the system. So I'm going to go through each one of these groups of assets here, and I think this is going to make it pretty clear for our viewers here today. So the protection umbrella is really that's the long-term care. Okay, the goal of this account is to protect the portfolio from expenses associated with the need for long-term care. So when we do our planning, and this is a step that's often missed, and the reason we put an umbrella on it is because this is really protecting all your other assets, because what's looming out there when you are reaching retirement and you're doing your planning is the risk of long-term care. And Barry, you know this better than any, because you've done long-term care for a long portion of your career, and you know that long-term care is a significant risk.
Let's just take a minute though and look at that, because when we say long-term care, what many people immediately think is, oh, we need long-term care insurance. Well, the answer to that question is, maybe you do, maybe you don't. What has to be analyzed is say, okay, do our people understand long-term care, how it works, what the costs can be, what the risk is? So a lot of what we do in creating that protection umbrella is, in the context of the whole financial world, how are we going to deal with the issue of long-term care? It could end up being the people decide they don't want it. They're going to self-insure and take that risk because in their judgment, it's a risk worth taking. And we also use trusts, and very specialized kind of trusts that enable people to shelter some assets from Medicaid. So, and because many people can't qualify to get these kind of insurance policies.
Yeah, I think when we get to the end, we're gonna really go through the types of accounts that we use for all these various jobs. So let's go down to the circle at the bottom left quadrant of the circle, where we start with short-term income. And the goal of short-term income is to provide income for 5 years. And the reason why we peel off a 5-year segment is because we want this segment to be ironclad guaranteed. So the goal of this account is to provide 5 years of guaranteed income with principal protection as the focus. Okay. Now, you're going to see as I progress through this cycle that as we get further into the cycle, we're going to address risk differently in each cycle. So with short-term income, it's no risk. We're talking guaranteed. And again, we'll go through what some of these accounts are appropriate to fit into the various buckets. We like to call these buckets. This is the short-term bucket, the short-term income bucket. So after the short-term income bucket, then we progress into the midterm income bucket. And the goal of the midterm income bucket is to start to provide predictable income after 5 years. So here we're going to go maybe years 6 through 10. Okay, and the goal of this account is to provide predictable and stable growth over the next 5 years. So years 6 through 10. Now when we're in this bucket, we can start to take a little more risk, but still not a lot of risk, because we're still in a very short window. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is years 6 through 10. Okay, now when we progress past this and we go into what we call long-term income, now we're starting to go into income beyond year 10. So let's say years 11 and beyond, maybe 11 to 15. Well, here the goal of this account is to provide steady growth with moderate risk over 10 years. So now we're getting into moderate risk. So here we can start to take some risk because we've got a longer window. We're longer with the investment, meaning that we can take more stock risk if that's appropriate. And then beyond that, Barry, we go into the growth account. So the growth account is designed to replace this entire cycle over 15 years. That's where the name asset cycle comes from, because we're actually cycling the assets through a period of time. And what happens is now if we're going 15 years and beyond, here's where we can really grow the portfolio and we can take sensible equity risk. And that's really a pitfall that we have found with a lot of investors, is they're using growth accounts, stock accounts, for short-term needs. So maybe income they're going to need now, or income they're going to need in the very near future. And investing in growth stocks is very tricky and it's very volatile.
And people often fall into this trap because it's tempting. You hear cocktail party chatter, I'm making 15% on this investment and 20% on that investment. But the reality is you can generally make money in the stock market if you have two things. One of them is to have some money, have some skin in it, and the other is to have time. If you've got enough time, then over time, generally, the stock market will give you a nice reward. However, when you're spending out of that account, you're asking it to do a little too much, trying to grow it, and you're also trying to withdraw from it at the same time. And that's can be a very stressful way to live your life if each month you've got to decide, or each day you've got to decide, well, can we afford to do this, or can't we afford to do this?
Well, that's true. And really, when you look at the growth account, you're really buying time with this plan, because if you've got 15 years to grow the money, I mean, even if you look at the last 15 years, which has had two of the worst global recessions in our nation's history. We had the recession that started back in the year 2000, lasted through 2002, and oh, by the way, had 9/11 mixed in there. And then we had the financial crisis of 2008. So both of those events happened in the last 15 years. Even with that, we could still grow the portfolio over the last 15 years.
And what was very nice too, as I recall those years, because they were interesting times, and our phones didn't ring off the hook with people or clients who were nervous about what was happening. I mean, the economy in 2008 was in a free fall. But our clients understand the asset cycle portfolio. They have that picture in their mind, and it's a comfort, because they know they're set up to withstand the short and midterm type of volatility and odd events and things like that. Long term, they're going to be okay, and short term, they know they're going to be okay because that's safer money. or
Yeah.
safe money.
Yep. And then, Barry, the other important factor here is the legacy bucket. So the legacy bucket here is to handle the transfer of assets to beneficiaries in the most tax efficient manner possible. So when you're doing planning, you want to certainly cover income needs throughout the life of the plan, but we also want to look into the future and see, well, what's our legacy going to look like? How are we going to leave our estate to our family, to charities, to whoever you want to be the benefactor of your estate. So we want to factor that in too, because when we look at these assets, there's tax ramifications with almost everything that we do. So we want to be really very mindful of that. So really, when you step back and look at this one-page analysis that we call the asset cycle portfolio system, what we're doing is we're cycling income throughout the life of the plan. We're using growth where appropriate. We're addressing the insurance needs with long-term care, and we're providing a legacy for the family.
Yep, that's great. It's great, and as you mentioned, it's really you could almost call it the recycle asset portfolio, because again, in that bottom right quadrant where it has the growth account, the goal of that account is over that period of time, is the assets that were in that growth account are going to grow back to be as much or more than what you started with.
Yeah.
And it's a very, as you say, simple but profound.
Yeah, simple but profound. And if you look at, and if we have a 15-year window, we can do wonderful things. We can do wonderful, because that's really where the stock portfolio can really take off there, because we have time. We have time on our side. Okay, moving right along here, Barry. What I want to do next is I want to run through an example here. So we've got an example of a client with $600,000 of assets. Now, I might want to mention that we've done asset cycle portfolios for much less money and for much more money. But this $600,000 example seems to fit nicely into this discussion here today, because it really addresses everything that we've just talked about. So we're going to start with a retirement portfolio of $600,000, and we're going to assume that the desired income is $25,000 from this portfolio. Okay, so there's going to be some assumptions that we want to make as far as rates of return and assets, and just keep in mind that these are assumptions. They're intended to be conservative estimates or of what one might expect to receive over time. And conservative's the key word here, because we don't want to get too crazy. Okay, so let's go. Let's break down the $600,000. Okay, with the next slide. We've got the $50,000. Hopefully everybody can see that. So we've got $50,000 allocated to cover long-term care insurance. Okay, so that's pretty significant. But again, we're going to see how valuable that is in the overall scheme of the plan, because we've set aside 50 to basically protect this whole nest egg. Okay. Now let's go back to the lower left-hand quadrant, where we've got $125,000 set aside to provide $25,000 a year for the next 5 years. Well, if you do the math, that's a 0% rate of return. So we're being very conservative here, and of course we're in a very low interest rate environment to begin with. But again, we want to be conservative, we want to be safe, and we're basically assuming this money is lying dormant and it's not making anything, because it's providing you immediate type income.
And it's buying you time. You're purchasing time with your money.
It's buying time. This whole system is buying time, but it's very evident here that we're going to get you $125,000 over 5 years, $25,000 a year. Now, let's also enforce something else here, and that is, you might not need $25,000 to live on. There's going to be other factors. There's other sources. There's Social Security, which we're assuming here that we've done a complete Social Security analysis, which we do with all of our clients. And also there might be some pension income here as well. So this $25,000 is simply what's needed from the investable assets.
Okay.
Okay. Now we move up into the next part of the asset cycle, the next bucket, if you will, and now we need $115,000. So again, we're using very conservative rates here, and we're assuming a 4% rate of return. That's going to grow to about $140,000 in 5 years, and it would then be used to provide income throughout the next cycle, which is years 6 through 10. Okay, so now we're assuming a couple things. We're assuming 4% growth, which is pretty much fixed income growth, and we're also assuming a little bit of inflation in there. Okay, so instead of getting $25,000 a year, you're going to get a little bit more than $25,000. Okay. Now, progressing to the next bucket. Okay, so if we're going clockwise here. So now the next bucket, which is the upper right-hand quadrant, we're assuming that we invest $85,000. We're going to get a 6% rate of return, taking moderate risk. So now we've now put some stock risk in there. So it's a mixture of stock risk and bond risk as well. And now our assets grown to about $152,000, as you can see here, in 10 years, and that would be used for income in years 11 through 15. Okay? Simple enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now what we've covered with those three buckets is we've provided income to our client for 15 years. And our client knows exactly where the money's coming from because we've laid it out here. We've laid out a plan. This is not an elaborate plan. In fact, it's a pretty simple plan. So simple, it's profound. And now we've got 15 years covered. Well, if we're working with a client who's 65, this gets them to age 80. Okay, so that now they're well into their retirement. However, at age 80, there's still a lot of life left. Okay, because a 65-year-old, we need planning 25 years and beyond, because there's a better than 50% chance that one of them's going to make it to age 90. Okay, so we have to have another plan in place to back up what we've done for the first 15 years. And that's where the bucket in the lower right-hand quadrant comes in, where we're starting with $189,000. Okay, now we're going to assume an 8% rate of return. Again, which we feel is a very conservative rate of return, considering it's all stocks. This is stock growth, which, over time, and of course we don't know what the future brings, but, historically, that's a very, very reasonable rate of return. Well, if we do that, guess what? Over 15 years, we're going to grow the portfolio back to the original $600,000. That's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to start all over again. Now, on top of that, we've got a legacy bucket. What does that mean? Very simple in this example. $35,855,000 is going to go into a life insurance policy that's going to pay a death benefit, a tax-free death benefit. Okay, so if you look at this system, Barry, $600,000, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's a nice retirement nest egg. It's not. We've seen larger nest eggs. We've seen smaller nest eggs. This is a nice nest egg. And we're providing them $25,000 a year of income to supplement their Social Security and their pension. We're providing long-term care coverage, and we're providing a legacy to their family.
So and to get an understanding of that legacy is, if somewhere along the line, let's say it's 15 years go by, and then if it's a couple, the second person passes away, well, that fourth quadrant has grown back to the $600,000, so they preserve the assets for their family. Plus, they've even provided some additional tax-free dollars in the form of life insurance, if they want that. If it's important to them, and it's liquid.
It's there.
And it's
You're right.
tax-free.
And there's different tax ramifications of all those assets. You're absolutely right. And not only that, if we go up to that protection umbrella with the long-term care, a lot of times what we're doing with the long-term care risk now is we're using life insurance for that as well.
Okay. So that legacy bucket is the assets as that you preserved because we've managed them wisely and gotten income out of them. But in addition, if you didn't really need the long-term care, which of course is everybody's hope that they don't need long-term care, the dollars that were set aside to provide the long-term care have a death benefit as well.
Yeah.
If they're not used for long-term care, there's even more for the family. It's when you look at this, like you say, that really it makes a lot of sense.
Right. All right. We're very rapidly coming to the end of the show here, so I want to go to the types of accounts that we might consider using for different sections of the asset cycle portfolio system. So in my mind, this is kind of where the rubber hits the road, because now we're talking about, well, okay, you've laid this all out here. What types of investments fit the bill? Okay, so for short-term income, this is income for the first 5 years. What do? It's safe. Cash, savings accounts, checking accounts, CDs, money markets. Those are all bank instruments. As long as the bank's there, your money's safe. Immediate annuities, laddered bonds. Okay, these are all very safe haven type investments. Okay, then we go into the next bucket where we're looking for midterm income, and now we have bonds. So now we can take some good bond risk because now we're out 5 years, and generally speaking, bonds are pretty good when you can go out that far. Again, CDs, so you're looking for maybe a longer term CD. And now we start to get into some of the annuity strategies, the fixed annuities, the indexed annuities, because we're going out 5 years. Now we're getting bond-like returns on those instruments as well. Okay. Now progressing along to the long-term income. So now we're going out over 10 years. Now we've got conservative securities, maybe blue chip stocks, maybe those stocks that pay consistent dividends, utilities, banks, those kinds of stocks. Again, indexed annuities would be a good fit here, as would variable annuities, because now with the variable annuities, a lot of times they have the income riders, so that works. The growth account is stocks, mutual funds. Now we can get at some of the more sophisticated equity type investments. And then, of course, for the protection and the legacy, we have the insurance. So we're about to put a wrap on another show. Boy, we covered a lot of material today. If you want to reach us, we want to put our contact information up on the system. So we've got, so there's our email address, our phone number. We're located right here in Pottstown, right down on the corner of High and Hanover. So it was really great to go through this today, Barry, Asset Cycle, and another show here on PCTV. So with that being said, this is Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush.